Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're all doing very well. Tonight we're going to be talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's top 5 transfer targets. He's been talking today at I think it was some sort of foundation that he was attending, and there was some quotes have come out from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer about the sort of players that he wants to bring in, the sort of personality, how one bad apple can ruin the whole basket, which I think we would all agree that, you know, he's probably referring to certain players that we've had in the last few years. But 5 players and a lot of people have been asking me about this for a while now in relation to people we've had on the show, people I've spoken to, and the rumours that are floating around. A lot of people like the transfer hotometer that we have on the Transfer Morning show, which I will bring back, but at this moment in time, a lot of people say, well, what are Manchester United's top transfer targets? And I think we've had to wait a little bit to establish who they are, but I think right now we can reveal the top 5 transfer targets for Manchester United at this moment in time. Now, we can do it in any particular order, and I think some of you will probably know 1 or 2 of these players. It's not going to be a big surprise if I say Jadon Sancho's in there. But 5 players that Manchester United are looking at the moment. And I'm going to start off with Van De Beek, because Van De Beek is a player that is getting a lot of news at the moment. We spoke about him this morning. I think yesterday morning was when it sort of came out. Stories today that Real Madrid are out of the... And welcome to Blogman, the latest member of the United Stand Members Club. Please share the video if you're watching underneath, and smash a like on the video as well. Share it on Twitter and Facebook with the share button. Van De Beek, Real Madrid, Marca. They're not buying anybody this summer. This is the story that's coming out of Madrid. Now, whether this is all smoke and mirrors or whether it's true, it would be a somewhat weird summer for Real Madrid to sign nobody when Real Madrid are about to get knocked out of the Champions League by Manchester City and are miles away from being the dominant force in Europe that they were under Zidane. They massively need reinvestment. So to think that they would go into next season and basically write off another season in the Champions League is somewhat surprising, but it may be a reflection of the current transfer market. Now, Donnie Van De Beek is probably available for around 40 to 50 million euros or pounds. So Real Madrid to not want to take a player of that quality for that price, I think is really, really quite surprising. And I would be surprised if that is the case. But it would appear to give Manchester United a clear path to Van De Beek. So at this point in time, Van De Beek has to be in the top 5 transfer targets of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the moment. So we'll have him as number 1. Not necessarily the number 1 priority. I don't think he's the number 1 priority. I think we all know who that is. But certainly there's enough noise around Donnie Van De Beek at the moment to suggest that Manchester United want this story to be known. Now, whether that's because they want to sign him or whether that's because they just want to get a bit of positivity, you go back 3 days ago, a lot of United fans are saying, why are we not in for Werner? Why are Chelsea making moves? Why are we not doing anything? And then suddenly, within 48 hours, as predicted by some, there is a positive news story around Manchester United. I tweeted it on Friday. I said, or Thursday night, there will be a positive news story around Manchester United this weekend. And lo and behold, it lands in our lap. Donnie Van De Beek. So, is it genuine or not? We're going to find out in time. Would I like him at Manchester United? Yes, I would. And it appears, well, look, the only bad thing, I would say, is if you're going to do a PR spin around Donnie Van De Beek and it suits Ajax for us to do it, you better go and sign him because nobody else seems to want him. So what's going to happen? We're in for Van De Beek and then a couple of weeks, he's off to Liverpool or he's off to Chelsea. Like, are we in for him or are we not in for him? And we'll find out in a few weeks. But I think he is in the top 5 for Manchester United at the moment. And I would certainly want him at United. Number 2, I'm going to mention... let's just do Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho, front of the queue, in love with Jadon Sancho. We've heard all the quotes. There is no doubt that Jadon Sancho is in the top 5 transfer targets for Manchester United. I think at the moment it will go quiet. I predicted this a couple of weeks ago. I think in the height of lockdown, there was a lot of talk about Sancho. He wasn't playing football. We're not playing football. He's playing football now. We're about to start playing football. We're about to start playing 3 games a week. I don't see Sancho to Manchester United getting the air that it's had over the last 3 months. Because once we start playing games and we're winning games, the buzz of getting top 4 will take over. Or if we lose games, the buzz of, the passion of not losing. You know what it's like when there's games coming thick and fast. It's going to go quiet on Sancho, but we are at the front of the queue and we know he's in the top 5 players. Number 3 is Jude Bellingham. I saw something today that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's got a 100% strike rate, and we'll talk about what Solskjaer said today about players because it fits in with all 5 of these. But I read something say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's got 100% strike rate in his transfers. And I think this is referring to the signings that he's made being good. Because Wan-Bissaka's been brilliant. Harry Maguire's been brilliant. Bruno's been brilliant so far. And Dan James, a bit like a roller coaster. But ultimately, I'd like to err on the side of he's been good. So I think that, in relation to his transfers being good, is fine. But I've always said, I remember Mourinho after the first year of Bailly, Zlatan, and Pogba and Mkhitaryan, it wasn't that bad. In fact, everyone was like, Mourinho's a genius. And then in the second year, it was like, oh shit, they're injury prone, they're inconsistent, whatever. So year 2 is important. But in relation to Ollie getting the players he wants, has he been 100%? No, he hasn't. He didn't get Haaland. He may have wanted Werner, and he definitely wants Bellingham. So Bellingham's definitely in the top 3 for Manchester United. And I think I hope that we get him. So Sancho, Bellingham, Van Der Beek make up our top 5 Ole Gunnar Solskjaer targets. Number 4, Grealish. I think, look, yeah, Grealish plays in the same position as Van Der Beek. We know that. But he is a player that United are interested in. You know, whether it's Manchester Evening News talking about it in February that we were going to put an offer in, or people who I've spoken to, or other people, you know, I think it's been mentioned by Athletic and others as well. Grealish is definitely a player that's on Manchester United's radar, and he's definitely in our top 5 targets. Whether we're going to sign Grealish or not, I think, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in the top 5, you've got Grealish and Van Der Beek and Bellingham. Can you sign all 3? Absolutely no chance. But this is where your priority listing comes in, because your top 5 doesn't mean it's 5 different players that you want to sign. It just means your top 5 priorities, and within your top 5, he's probably looking at 2 or 3 positions, and that's why maybe 3 players in this top 5 are actually players for 1 position. Will we get Bellingham and Grealish? Maybe. Will we get Bellingham and Van Der Beek? Maybe. Will we get Bellingham, Van Der Beek and Grealish? Not a chance. We will not. We won't get Grealish and Van Der Beek, to be honest. We might get Grealish and Bellingham, or we might get Bellingham and Van Der Beek, but we won't get Grealish and Van Der Beek. That won't happen. It'll be one or the other. And it's interesting because I wasn't 100% sure we were going to go for a midfielder anyway. And the fact that this Van Der Beek story's come through, Van Der Beek's better than Grealish. I don't care what anybody says. Look, Grealish is a good player. I'd welcome him at Manchester United, but Van Der Beek's better, younger, got better potential, and he's a better player. This is a lad who's played Champions League football, and he's been doing it for years. He played a Europa League final, and was he a teenager or just 20? So he's a fantastically talented player like De Jong and De Ligt, and I would welcome him at Manchester United ahead of Grealish. But I do rate Grealish. And I do wonder what the truth is. And this is what I mean about the Van Der Beek story. I wonder what the truth is, because I know for a fact that Grealish is a player that we were looking at if Pogba was going to leave. And I know for a fact that we want Bellingham. So where does Van Der Beek come into this? And I think this is where a lot of United fans are currently confused. Where does Van Der Beek come into this? What's this all about? Like, we wanted Grealish to replace Pogba. We want Bellingham anyway, so why do we want Van Der Beek? What's Van Der Beek's role at Manchester United if Pogba's staying? It is odd, but he's definitely in the top 4, as is Grealish. And then number 5, Joe Rodon. Swansea centre-back, that you cannot dispute the fact that we are looking at this player potentially. You can not like it, and I certainly am confused by it, but I certainly think if we're looking at a centre-back, it will be somebody like that, who will be cheap like Dan James, who has got potential like Dan James, and Manchester United have got a good record, and he's been recommended by somebody who is probably Ryan Giggs again. So Rodon would be the final player. So that's the top 5. Definitely Sancho, Van Der Beek as we know, Grealish as we know, Bellingham as we know, and Rodon, the centre-back from Swansea. Which, to me, I think it's United. It's a bit like Friends United, isn't it? You know, Friends Reunited. Who remembers Friends Reunited? We thought it would last forever. It was absolutely trash when you look back at it now. Who's the better player, Jovic or Werner, says Zarelli? Irrelevant. And Bryce Menizer says, I really hope that we will get a technical director this year and the deals will be done quicker and more efficiently. Doing deals in days rather than months, it's so frustrating. Well, we do need to operate a lot quicker. Werner's better than Jovic, by the way. But look, it's really interesting. Just I feel I shouldn't. I feel I should talk about Joe Rodon, because I went, yeah, Joe Rodon's on the top 5. Let's move on, and everyone else has had a couple of minutes spoken about them. Rodon at Swansea, from what I've seen, and it is limited. Look, I don't have a Swansea season ticket. I've got no intention of going to watch Swansea City play, but I have seen him play a couple of times. And, people say, oh, you've only seen him play a couple of times. What do you know about him? Well, I think if anybody watched Harry Maguire played one 90-minute game, you'd know that Harry Maguire is not super fast. He's not Van Dijk, and he's not Rio Ferdinand, and he's not he's not Gary Pallister. You can watch somebody for 90 minutes, and you can watch someone for 10 minutes and know what their body movement's about. You can watch someone for 20 minutes and see what they're like on the ball. You can get a gauge of what a player's attributes are in a game. And I've seen Rodon play a couple of times, and I think he's definitely got Premier League. Well, he should be playing in the Premier League. I agree with that. But what would be the point of him coming to Manchester United? I don't really get it, because for me, he's just Harry Maguire 0.2. Like, that's what he is. He's good in the air. He's good on the ball. He's not. Harry Maguire's not slow, but he's certainly not fast. And Rodon's the same. So I don't see Rodon and Maguire are never going to be a centre-back partnership. So why would we get Rodon? I just don't get why we would go for that player. And God, please don't let it be an indication that we're going to play 3 centre-backs with a back 5, because that is not Manchester United, and that never will be Manchester United. So I don't see why we'd be looking at this player, to be honest, but I certainly think from the rumours and the noise that we are. I'm sick of this. We spend more on rumours than actual players. Why can't we just do business like Chelsea? We drag transfers so much, says Magic Eye. Well, I'd like a little bit of clarity on that, Magic Eye. I mean, realistically, what is it that's frustrating you? The transfer window isn't even open at the moment. I mean, the only thing you could be frustrated about is that we didn't go for Werner. James McKay, welcome to the club, latest member of the United Stand Members Club. And Joshua Harper, let's not forget, we will only have a good team on paper if we buy a right winger and a centre midfielder. We might realise players in other positions aren't good enough for a title. I think many people say that. White Owl, the right winger is Sancho. That's the player that we want, and I think that we all know that. And hey, Mark, do you think that we should sign Deo Upamecano? Says Colpo. Please share the video. We've got nearly 6,000 watching. Do I think that we should sign Upamecano? Well, he got sent off at the weekend, didn't he? But again, you shouldn't be judging players on one game. You can see what he's all about. And just like I said, I've seen Rodon play a couple of times, and I think I know what his attributes are. I've seen Upamecano play a few times, and you can see what sort of player he is. And Upamecano would complement Maguire way more than Rodon would. And he's got better experience to do it. So, I'd welcome Upamecano at United, but I think there's probably better options. But certainly, I think if we're looking at a centre-back, you need somebody who's got different attributes to Harry Maguire. If Harry gets injured, where's the aerial ability, says Sartak? Well, common sense there. Common sense comment. If Harry Maguire gets injured, where's the aerial ability? So you bring in Rodon. But can I just say, why are we bringing in a backup Harry Maguire? Why have we got Twan Sebi, Eric Bailly, Phil Jones? Why are we going to bring in a Harry Maguire backup when we actually haven't got backups for the front 3 and we haven't got backups for the midfield yet? So I don't think a backup for Harry Maguire is a priority for this summer. Should we get Van Der Beek, says Joe Wright. Look, I've got no problem with Manchester United signing Donnie Van De Beek. I haven't. I really like the player. I think he's very welcome at Manchester United. But do I believe we're in for Donnie Van Der Beek? I don't. I don't personally believe it. And it's a total and utter guess from me. But it just doesn't feel to me like we are in for Donnie Van De Beek. And if that is the case, then that is the case. But I just don't think that we are. I feel that, and I put my hands up here and say, why don't you think we're in for Van Der Beek, Goldbridge? Because Van der Sar says we are. We've got a clear run at him. And look, if this was Bruno Fernandes last summer, you know what I'd be doing. But I just don't believe we're in for him, because I know we like Grealish. I know we like Bellingham. So why are we going for another midfielder when we're trying to get 2 others? So it doesn't make a sense on that point of view. And also, the cynic in me, and I'm really sorry about this, Manchester United and anybody, the cynic in me is this. I can't tweet out on Thursday night, when we don't go in for Werner, I guarantee we'll get a positive news story from United in the next 24 hours. And it wasn't the next 24 hours, it was 48. But there it was, Donnie Van De Beek. And I just think, I've been down this road too many times where United are getting a bit of stick about what they're doing in the transfer market. And lo and behold, within the next 2 days, there's a player that everyone's like, oh, yeah. And it dilutes. We'll be in for that. We're strongly in for Van De Beek at the moment, aren't we? We all know that. Next week, we'll be tentatively in for him. 2 weeks' time, we'll have forgot about it because it'll be something else. And that's what I'm expecting to come. But I hope I'm wrong, because I do like him, and I actually would take him over Grealish. So if you told me we can get, this summer, we're going to get Sancho, Van Der Beek and Bellingham, where's the party? Drinks are on me. I'm having that. I'm absolutely having that. Because Sancho, Van Der Beek and Bellingham is better than Sancho, Grealish and Bellingham. So, yeah, I want it to happen. I just don't trust it, if I'm honest. I'm going to talk to you about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's comments, but please keep sharing the video and smash a like. But there's a few super chats, first of all. Dale says, if we signed a world-class CDM, could we play a City-style 4-3-3 with two creative midfielders, Bruno and Pogba, and make it work in most games? Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, there's an obsession with Pogba playing as a more advanced player, but I think when you look at Pogba, he doesn't always do that, and he can definitely play other roles. Sean Tilner says, don't believe a word Ollie said, and we haven't got that specialist CDM, and I don't think we're going to buy one. Don't believe a word Ollie says. After them comments he made after the Everton game, he just lied to all his fans. He's Ed Woodward's puppet. And given Young was given an extra year and sold 6 months before its expiration, do you think Matic would be sold this January? Says Srin Vazan. I think Matic has redeemed himself massively. I agree with the criticism, and but I also agree with Matic saying, up yours, I've proved you wrong, because that's the circle of life. You know, Matic was playing crap. I called him a bag of cement. Part of it was banter, part of it I meant. That rhymes. But he's come good, and I will always be at the front of the queue to reward and praise somebody who turns it around. A year ago, I said Rashford and Martial were crap. They're two of my favourite players. They were crap. Look at them now. Sometimes people need a bit of criticism to turn it around, and Matic has certainly done that. But I think if Matic next season started like he started this season, he could be sold in January, yeah. Maybe we're in for Van Der Beek because he's better, says Stephen B. Harry. Yeah, well, Stephen makes a very good point there. A very, very good point. Because what if United are looking at Grealish and Villa are saying, and you know what it's like. I can't be a hypocrite on this. You know what it's like. Manchester United dealing with English clubs, they sit back and suddenly they're relevant. Villa will forget they've been relegated the second that United come knocking at the door for Grealish, because they'll go, walking like a boss. Right, we're starting the bidding at 60 million. And United have got to spend 6 weeks trying to get him for his price, which if they're relegated is 45. So United may have looked at it and gone, you know what? We're going to have a right battle with Grealish and Villa. Even if they get relegated, they're going to make it hard for us. They're going to want 60 million quid. We know Van der Sar at Ajax. Ajax will be happy to take 45 from Van Der Beek, and Van Der Beek's better than Grealish. So if I rewind a little bit here, I actually said this the other day. I said, why are we always scouting British players when you can get better players abroad for less money? Well, maybe this is going to be an example of that. Maybe United do really want Grealish, and they've looked at it and gone, hold on a minute, Real Madrid aren't getting Van Der Beek. Van Der Beek can do what Grealish does and more for 20 million less and 3 years younger. You know, Stephen might have just hit the nail on the head there. That might be exactly what United have done here. So, yeah, Grealish is in the top 5. And for anybody who's joined late, the top 5 transfer targets for Manchester United at the moment are Sancho, Grealish, Bellingham, Van Der Beek and Rodon from Swansea. They are the 5. I don't think anybody else gets in that 5. You can talk about Saul Niguez, you can talk about Raul Jimenez, you can talk about whoever you like, but they're the 5. From what I've heard and from what we're hearing everywhere else, they're the 5. Doesn't mean we're signing those 5, because three of them play in the same position more or less. But I certainly think that there might be something in that United's desire for Grealish is now diluting at the fact that they can get a better player who's younger and cheaper. And I would applaud United if they're going to do that. Although I'm suspicious that they're not going to do that. I think it's just paper talk to a certain extent. I would applaud United if they dropped interest in Grealish and bought Van Der Beek, because it would show what we need to do. Someone was saying yesterday morning, why do we never look at players from South America? We've got scouts there, we just don't trust them as a club. Well, maybe Man United may be looking a bit bigger now. Maybe we would go, you know what, instead of looking at Grealish, who we see every week in the Premier League, let's take it. Let's go for this Van Der Beek, and that would be good for United, because we will have more money in the bank and we'll have better players for it. Matthew, I mean, imagine if Bruno Fernandes was English. We would have paid 100 million for him. We got him for half that price because he plays in Portugal. I honestly think Donnie won't be as good as a fit as Grealish, because for me, Grealish is Premier League proven and looks hungry like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, says Matthew. Matthew, I don't disagree with you on that, and by no means am I undermining us signing Grealish, because I would like Grealish, and you're right, this is a player that has played in a relegation team this season, has got better stats than Maddison, who's third, and he's a leader, and he's hungry. But on the other hand, and I've not seen Van Der Beek as much as I watch Grealish, but I have seen a lot of Van Der Beek. He's hungry. Like, he plays in a team that's hungry. They go and get the ball back, and they've been doing that all the way to Champions League semi-finals last year, all the way to Europa League finals a few years ago. Ajax are a hungry team. It goes right through from whatever age they take them on as kids, all the way through to the first team. They press high up the pitch. They're good on the ball. Don't worry, Van Der Beek's a hungry player. Joshua Harper says, let's get real. United are planning for Pogba's exit. Grealish plays 10 and Bruno plays 6. We get Van Der Beek, who plays 6, and Bruno plays 10. I don't think we're going to get both, mate. But as I said this morning, if United sign Van Der Beek with an eye on Pogba going next summer, that's future planning I haven't seen at United for a long time, and I would applaud it. A big club like United should not be, this player's going this summer, so we'll replace him this summer. If you know Pogba's... you're not always going to know this, but if you know one of your best players is definitely going in a year's time, you should get his replacement in now to work alongside him and ease them in. And if United did that with Van Der Beek, I'd be very impressed. Theoretically, if Chelsea get Sancho, is United dead for another 5 to 3 years, says Lumberjack 500. I mean, it's theoretical. It would be very difficult for Manchester United to lose out on Sancho to a Premier League rival. And also, I think the big problem with Sancho is that for United, and the big reason why Manchester United are so in for Jadon Sancho is because people often ask us, you do it amongst yourself on the live comments, who is the alternative to Jadon Sancho? And then you try and solve that question now. Who is the alternative to Jadon Sancho in the live comments? You try and solve that question now. Because the problem is, the drop-off from Jadon Sancho, as I've said time and time again, to the alternative is there. If United desperately need a right midfielder, a right winger, whatever you want to call it. We're desperate for one. If we don't get Jadon Sancho, we're going in down here. And I'm not a DJ. That's not what I'm doing. That's Jadon Sancho. That's the level without him. He's that good and he's that perfect for United. So if we don't get Jadon Sancho, we end up going down here. And yes, how can you look to be winning titles when you are filling your team up with this lot? United tried for Grealish post-January. Why are we looking at different options if we had our target set on Grealish, says KO. And I think with that, you make a very good point. But it could be because we've changed our mind and we've realised we can get a better player who's younger for cheaper. So that might be it. But I can't reiterate, I'm sceptical about the Van Der Beek story because I just feel that there was a bit of negativity around United last week and they needed something to get a bit of positivity around United. And we know that Neil Ashton's been employed by Woodward to make positivity around United, and I think there's been great work done there. But it also makes certain people very suspicious of, there's a bit of negativity around United. You can almost predict it. You can almost predict it now. And that's why I said it on Thursday. It's getting a bit negative around United at the moment. There's going to be something positive coming out, and here it is. It might be coincidence. It might be true. Do you think we need... But, can I just say, on the PR spin of United, it can't just be, Neil, we need a bit of positive news. Can you put something out there? Oh, I know Van der Sar. He'll pretend we're signing Van Der Beek for us, and he'll be happy to do it. That could be a story that goes off. But Neil would also say, I can't just keep spinning nonsense because your fans will start to realise you actually do need to go. If you want PR, you do need to spend money on some of these players. So everyone gets a bit cynical about the PR spin of United, but also look at what we've done over the last few months. There's been a lot of positivity around United where they followed through on things. We didn't put our staff onto furlough, a lot of the charity work. And I think United realise that. It's not just about PR spin now. You can PR spin, but you've actually got to back it up a little bit as well. And they might just be buying themselves a little bit at a time, just to get a bit of positivity back around the club until the transfer window opens. It's getting a bit political in PR, isn't it now? Do you think we need a reformation of the board and restructuring in order for us to become successful? With the same board, we ain't going anywhere, says Chikorito Hernandez. Well, yes and no. Look, I think if Manchester United's board, and I still need to tell you what Ollie said actually, I think yes and no. Because I think if with United's board, if you took the Glazers out, not like that. I mean, you replace them with a board like Man City's or a board that like Bayern Munich's, where it's about the money that you make being reinvested into the club and nobody really makes a profit. We've got owners who want to make a profit, right? So if we hadn't been bought on debt and somebody just owned us and the profit went back into the club for facilities and players, we would have won numerous titles because we could buy ourselves out of trouble with the revenue that we've got. Unfortunately, we've got owners who use us to make money. They will spend money on the club because they can't not spend anything, but they'll do it at an arm's length. For every pound they give, they'll take £1 or £2 away. We have been successful with that model. You know, we have won titles with the Glazers. We've won a Champions League with the Glazers. So it can be done. It's just harder. And what also makes it harder is they haven't got Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson, as Alan Hansen said, you could have given him the squad of any of the top four at one point, and whichever team he took over, he'd win the title. He was that great a manager. United haven't got Sir Alex Ferguson at the moment, and it remains to be seen, if you haven't got a genius manager, can you win titles with the Glazers in charge? And that's something that doesn't really get spoken about. We have won with the Glazers, and the Glazers do want to make money out of the club, so they don't put everything into it that they should do. But can we win titles with the Glazers without Sir Alex Ferguson? And that's the question that Mourinho and Van Gaal, Moyes and Ollie have been charged with trying to prove. And at the moment, it's still uncertain. But I think in relation to the board and transfers, something has changed in the last year, and I hope it continues. Hi Mark, big up to the channel. It's amazing. Brought the channel up with a lad in work randomly, and he said he watched it too. He's in Northern Ireland. I'm in Dublin. Amazing community, says Muzzy Lions. It is. Thanks everyone. You are fantastic. Please smash a like on the video. We're nearly at 1,000 likes, and subscribe if you're new, bottom right hand corner. And please share the video because we're nearly at 1,000 people watching. You can do that underneath. Joan Daniel says, what do you think Pogba feels his best position is? At the World Cup, he played a quarterback type role, but he feels like he wants to be further up with a little defensive duty. Another reason why he wants to go. Well, look, you know what? I think Paul Pogba, I don't want to do a show on what Pogba's best position is, but what I've always said about Pogba is, and obviously there's a lot of nostalgia around at the moment. The Euros have been re-shown in England from the Euro 96. Gascoigne, I'm watching his documentary on Netflix at the moment. Genius, absolute genius. And what I loved about Gascoigne is gets the ball in the midfield, runs at people. You don't get that. I think Zidane did it, but not many people did it. Paul Pogba can get the ball and he can skin somebody. And if you do that as a midfielder, if you think about it, a midfield 2 against the midfield 2 or 3, but whatever. If you, as Paul Pogba, run at Rodri for Man City and you go past him, you're running at the defence. But so is Martial and Rashford. And one of those defenders has got to come out for Pogba because he gets 30 yards out, he can score. That's what I would like to see Paul Pogba doing more of, is driving forward with the ball. So he's got to be a little bit deep to do that. Not so deep that it's too far for him. But I think if Bruno's more advanced because he's got the little intricacy and Matic or somebody is holding the midfield, then Pogba's your box to box, because Pogba can come deep next to Matic and he can win the ball, he can play the ball, he's tall, he can play a short pass, he can play a long pass, but also if he's got space he can run in front and he can get into the final third, and that's where I think Pogba's best position is. Unfortunately at United, I think that we don't have that formation at the moment because we've got the 4-2-3-1, which is 2 holding midfielders and Bruno as the 10. And then we've got this 5-3-2, which again is 2 holding midfielders and Bruno as a 10. Or we've got the diamond, which I don't like the diamond because it splits the front 2. So I liked what Ollie did in the early days. 1 holding midfielder, 1 box-to-box and 1 more advanced. But I like Pogba running from the deep, and I think Pogba's can... I don't think you see enough of it, and I think it can hurt teams. Ollie said he's close to Edwin. Can Van Der Beek be next Kevin De Bruyne, says Darshan Singhvi. Well, we'll have to wait and see. We ain't going to buy Van Der Beek or Grealish. Ollie would much prefer to bring McTominay and Garner through, says Sean Turner. Max Gamer 7 says, hi Mark, love the shows. When's the next game for Goldbridge, and which player would you want most at United outside of Sancho? I haven't thought about going for Goldbridge because I'm doing cooking with Goldbridge at the moment, which actually I've dropped the link in the video description. If no one's aware of cooking with Goldbridge, check it out, link in the video description, because I know a lot of people aren't aware of it because I've only got 65,000 subscribers on that channel and United Standard is massive. So if you've ever wanted to watch the Cooking with Goldbridge series, I've done fish and chips, lasagna, curry, chili, pizza. That's the 5. Next one's going up on Thursday. Give it a watch. Link in the video description. What player would I want other than Jadon Sancho? Oh, it's a bloody good question, that. It would have been Werner, but we've messed that up. I really did want Werner. I'm going to say Bellingham, unorthodox, whatever you want to say. I'm going to say Bellingham. Yeah, there's just something about that signing that I think it would be great for United. Kelt Helsland says, we need different types of players. If we want to rest Pogba, Fernandes, Van Der Beek, Fred, McTominay is a good midfield. We can use them in the cup. Interesting. Let me just talk to you about... Jacob says cooking with Goldbridge is hilarious. You've got to watch it. I think it's in the video description. It is. Link in the video description. Check it out. Next one's going up on Friday. They go up every Friday at the moment. Could we end up with no one, says Loud Steel? Of course we could. So, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been speaking. Let me just go through some of the things that he said. He did mention that one rotten apple will ruin the basket, and that's not the sort of player they're looking for at United, which is obviously makes sense. He also said you've got to work hard, and obviously work hard FC. I'm sure some people will say that. And you've got to give everything for this team and your teammates. And that's the sort of player that he's looking to bring into his club to play the way that he wants to play and the coaches want to play. And he also mentioned that youth will continue. There's a couple of players to come through in the next couple of years. So all the right things. No reason to really delve into it any deeper. I mean, the headline, I suppose, is Ollie wants players that are focused on the club, willing to give everything for the club, work hard for the club. I mean, realistically, you could just type that out and then delete it and close the document without saving it. It's standard, It's not. There's nothing in that statement other than passion merchant, which we don't need because we're already excited for everything to come back. But we're looking for players that are going to fight for their team and the teammates, and rotten apple will ruin the basket. I mean, these are things that United never should have made these mistakes about, and I'm not criticising Ollie here. I think Ollie is probably emphasising the problems that he's inherited, because where did it all go wrong for United? He even referenced that. I've played at this club. I know what you've got to do. But the more Ollie mentions this, I think the more obvious it is that the squad that he inherited has got big problems with it, and maybe not so much now, but certainly the one he inherited, because he always talks about working hard and playing for the badge and playing for your teammates. And why does he need to mention that? This is Manchester United. It's standard. If I was Manchester United manager and I walked in and there was players not doing that every day, I'd be really concerned. But Ollie mentions it so much that I think that it obviously is a problem that he inherited, which goes back to what we made mistakes after Sir Alex Ferguson left, and the managers and the players that we've recruited, and the reference to the bad apples from Ollie just shows you that he's had a hard job. And we took it for granted for so long under Sir Alex Ferguson that every player was terrified, and they were a failure, and they all worked for each other. And no matter how, we had some bad players, but they still worked hard, and they exceeded their ability many times because of that. So Ollie saying all that just to me demonstrates that we lost our way big time, didn't we? And now we're trying to find it back. But yeah, there's nothing majorly forward thinking from Ollie there. I still think the most relevant thing he said is that they want players who can come in and play the way he wants to play and his coaches want to play. And Paul Robinson's probably in the live comments, and he'll probably be saying it right now. What is the way we're playing, Ollie? We still don't know that, and we're 18 months on. We don't know what Ollie's style of play is. It was very obvious what Lampard's was from the first minute, because it was what he did at Derby. But with Ollie, we've seen many alternatives of ways to play. And we're still waiting to find what we're going to do. And I think now, these last 9 games of the season and into next season are going to be the defining years for Ollie. I don't think defining months. We can't be turning up in a game playing 5-3-2. Next game we're playing a diamond. Next time we're playing a 4-2-3-1. It's too adaptive. That's not in the United way. That's like Mourinho. That's like, we're playing Brighton today. They play with 2 up front, so let's play a back 5. We're playing Liverpool today. They're going to have a go at us, so we'll play a back 5 and hit them on the break. We're playing Burnley at home. They'll sit back. Let's play with 4 at the back. We can't adapt who we are for every game, and I think we've done that too much over this season. And I think there is definitely a reason to think that it's to do with players that have been missing and players that he wanted, etc. But you don't see Liverpool, you don't see Man City, you don't see Chelsea, you don't see Leicester changing their formation. I mean, even Brendan Rodgers plays the same virtually every game. We need to find a style of play that football fans of this football club can identify and be proud of. And we need to stick with it. And we need to know, and clubs need to know that's the way we play, and they need to deal with it. Not us. We don't need to adapt every game. So this is what we need to see. Ollie don't know what style of football he plays, says Sean Turner. Well, we've got to find it out. He's got to go with something. And I think with everybody being fit, he'll never have more of an opportunity to do that. So Spurs, Sheffield United, Norwich, our first 3 games coming up. Let's see if we change the formation in any of those games. I'll be very disappointed if we do. I want us to go out there and start playing the way we're going to play. I reckon we won't get Sancho. A Glazers out movement begins and gets snubbed after we get a major signing in the winter. The usual club's business, says Ishan Pundi. And Matt Ike says, can't wait for us to focus on real games and results rather than speculation. After all, that's what it's about. Can't wait to beat Moody Mourinho again. And I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right, Matt. And this is why I said at the start of the show, the Sancho story will sort of disappear for a few weeks, because if we're doing a watch along for Spurs, which we are on the Friday night, and then the next day we're doing the chart show, and then the next night we've got Ricky and everyone on Sunday night talking about what went right, what went wrong, what do we do for the game against Sheffield United midweek, and then we've got the Sheffield United game midweek, and then we've got the FA Cup game, we've got all again, previews, predictions, reactions, fan cams. Where is our interest on the Tuesday morning when the Athletic or somebody says Sancho's really interested in a move to Manchester? Like, we'll be like, oh, that's great, but we're playing a game tonight, we're trying to get top 4. So you're absolutely right. As soon as the football comes back, and look, football's seasonal. When the football season finishes at the end of May, we all go mad for transfer stories until the start of July. Then we're on tour. We'll have a bit of transfer stories while we're on tour. Then the transfer window closes. Then the football season starts. Then we just watch football till January. Then the transfer window starts. And that's right. So we are going to go back into football, and that's what the focus is going to be. Mark, you're referring to winning with the Glazers, says Stephen B. Harry. Not got a genius manager at the helm. I'm not in favour of Ollie, but he's the manager and have to back him. Yeah, well, I think we definitely have to back him until the end of this season. And then if he gets top 4, which I think he will, we go from there. I will say Van De Beek is important to get. Ollie wants him so he could get rid of Pereira, and we get Sancho so we can get rid of Lingard. Like that vision, says Kelt Husland. Look, if Lingard and Pereira go, I think Ollie will have solved 2 problems without having to repeat it again. He's given them more than enough opportunities this season, and he should already know that they're not good enough. But just talking about United in the summer, I didn't do the Sunday night show last night because it was my anniversary, so Flex stood in, and we had Ricky and everybody on. And what I was going to ask them if they were on the show, so I'll ask the live comments of you now. What's your prediction for the rest of the season? And I may have asked you this before a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, but what's your prediction for United's season? League finish, Europa League finish, and FA Cup. Because I'll tell you this, 3rd in the league, Europa League winners, FA Cup winners or runners-up. I don't know whether we'll win the FA Cup because we might be playing Man City in the final or whoever. But we will win the Europa League, we will come 3rd, and we will get to the FA Cup final if we avoid Man City in the semi-final. That's what I think is going to happen. It's brave. It may not happen, but that is my prediction. So if he does those 3 things, he will have beaten Mourinho. He will be our best manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. Because Mourinho won a Europa League and a Carabao Cup. And he came 2nd in the league one year. He's not having his treble, his bloody Community Shield. He's not having that. But for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to win the Europa League and get 3rd in the league, to me that beats Mourinho. And I know people will say, well, why? Because he came 2nd in the league. Because he's done it in a more transformational way. I never felt with Mourinho that we were building anything. I felt it was Mourinho's very much about the now. That's why he's a short-term manager. And it got gradually worse with Mourinho. I think the first season it looked good and we won the Europa League, and it just got gradually worse. And I know we came second in the league, but it was a crap league that year, and then he was gone into year 3. So Mourinho is a very short-term manager, and Mourinho did all his success really in the first season. For Ollie, this is basically his second season, isn't it? But also, we know with Ollie, whether we believe it or not, is that they're looking to the future. So for him to do that, I think would be great. And a few people are laughing about Mourinho's treble. I've got an even better treble for you today. I was on Twitter and somebody had a picture of Jordan Henderson and was saying that he's one of the few captains to lift the international treble. And I was like, what the hell is the international treble then? And because international to me is international football, and he's definitely not won a World Cup or the Euros. So the international treble is the Champions League, the Super Cup, and the World Cup thing that they did in December. That's now that's a treble. Like I said, and there was even Liverpool fans agreeing in my reply saying we don't claim that as a treble. Like we don't. But there were some Liverpool fans saying, yeah, just because you've never won it. I was like, genuinely don't want to win it if we're going to have to call it an international treble and get bantered. Like, that's not a treble. That is not a treble. Or tribble, or whatever you call it. It's just not. Look, Mark, I'm just so happy that football is back. 4th place, FA Cup winner, and get knocked out by Inter is my prediction. I will give Ollie next season to see the real progress and style he wants to play, says Matthew. Well, yes, because if he gets champion, look, ultimately, I think we'll finish 3rd, win the Europa League, and get to the FA Cup final. If we get knocked out of the Europa League, we get knocked out of the FA Cup, and we finish 5th, but we get Champions League football because City have got a ban, he'll be here next season. Champions League football will keep Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the club. I actually think if he doesn't get Champions League football, they might keep him. There'll be a lot of pressure on him, but I still think he'll be here next season. Renate Felstad, thank you for the super sticker. Keep it up. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you very much. Optimistic Mark, says Cormac Walsh. Well, no, people won't agree with that, Cormac. I'm not optimistic. I'm very, very realistic about Manchester United's situation. And I've been cynical of it, clinical of it, and the way that we've played football, and I still am. We've still got to improve in the way that we play football. But as I said with Matic, look, I thought he was awful for about a year, and he's turned it around. And I think under Solskjaer, we've been awful for about a year, from about the start of April last year to the end of January this year. 10 months. Awful. Absolutely awful. Some good performances within there, but the vast majority awful. It wasn't so long ago that we were talking about he's taken the least amount of points and all sorts of bad records. But what I've seen in the last, since Bruno came in, and I did say when we signed Bruno I was going to give him a chance, but it's not just about that. Because his first game he played Bruno as a CDM and I was like, what are you doing? But with Bruno, Rashford coming back, Pogba coming back, the talk about Sancho, there's a real opportunity here. There's a real opportunity here. And some people will say I'm stupid, but there's a real opportunity with the momentum that we've got, with Bruno, with Pogba, with Rashford, with Martial, with people like Luke Shaw and Fred and McTominay and Matic and Maguire and Wan-Bissaka and playing so well at the moment. And Dan James coming back into form and obviously people like De Gea. I just feel there's a momentum, there's an ability, and I believe that we will get top 4, and I believe that we will win a cup. So, if I feel like that, somebody who's been very concerned about where we're heading under Ollie, then I think the vast majority will as well. But it doesn't mean that you're wrong to be concerned. It doesn't mean that you're wrong to have to think that things might not go that well. Of course, I accept that, but I just think that we're onto something here. Offer Sanchez for a Garlo swap deal, says Dan T. I tell you what, if I had £1 for every time somebody said that, I'd have about £12. It's the most brilliant deal. I don't think it'll happen. I always support our managers, even Moyes, says Kevin O'Keefe. When he got chosen, but no manager will succeed without the backing of Woodward, unfortunately. It's not Ollie. And PMV Patrick, thank you very much for the contribution. I mean, we're just going back to Kevin's point. If you go back to United Stand videos at the start of the season, I said I'll never be Ollie out because it's the board that needs to change. And I think a lot of people felt like that. But I think what caused Ollie's problems this season is the football. He never should have been. Ollie out should never have been a thing. It was justified, but it never should have been a thing because he had the total backing of the fans, and everybody knew that it was hard for him under Woodward and the Glazers. But his mistake this season was the style of football. That's where I spoke to a lot of people, and they were like, you know what, been going to United for years, love Ollie, but he ain't the man, is he? His tactics are crap, and a lot of people were feeling like that. And he's rode that storm, and now he needs to get out of that storm, get into the sun, and start never look back and never go back to that. Treble this year, FA Cup, Europa League and Super Cup against Man City. A treble like Liverpool, says TFT. Well, yeah, we would. I wonder if they'll do the Super Cup this year, actually. They might not do it. And what is Gomez's role if he signs with us, says James Jacobs. Angel Gomez, I don't know. Loan him out next season. I think Gomez and Chong need to go on loan next season without a question. That's what needs to happen there. I think there's a number of players that need to go on loan. Garner's got to go on loan. Gomez has got to go on loan. Chong's got to go on loan. Maybe a couple of the other youngsters need to go on loan as well. Wouldn't mind seeing Ethan Laird going on loan. Levitt going on loan, of course. I said it this morning. I wouldn't even be opposed to Jesse Lingard going on loan to Italy. With a view to buy. I think that would be a decent deal as well. So, yeah, that would be of interest to me, without a shadow of a doubt. Hamilton leads alone, says Tyler. Ethan Hamilton, why is he still at the club? He's got no future. I don't get. I think there's some young players that just need to be moved on. Happy anniversary, says Talal. Thank you very much. Smalling is going to stay in Roma, Thomas. If you watched the show this morning, you'll find out what that story was all about. I tell you what, I'm absolutely exhausted from this show today. I think it's been a very, very fast momentum, interactive show. So I applaud everybody in the live comments who's watching, and everybody who's not watching live. We've all got busy lives, but you've really put me through the mill tonight. I can feel the tiredness coming through. Leaf Hunter says, I don't know if anyone had said this, but aren't we keeping Agallo till January because we don't have enough money to buy a striker, and by then we will? Leaf, probably a very good point. They will only have a certain amount of money to spend, and they'll have to prioritise. I think United definitely know they need a striker, but I think you're probably right. They haven't got the money for it. So, yes, I think that you're probably right. Let me just get rid of this idiot. There we go. Flex and Rants is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Matt Hodges, yes. I'll be probably live again in the morning at 10 a.m. I did it live this morning. It was just easier to do it live, so I'll probably be live at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning with the Man United news and transfer news show. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. Thanks to all the moderators, as per usual. Thanks for all the super chats. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks to everybody who's new and subscribed to the show. Thanks to everyone who shared the video. And if you want to see a little bit more of me, do check out Cooking with Goldbridge. Links in the video description. Give it a watch. And if you like it, you've got 5 episodes to watch. Football references and cooking. See what you think. Links in the video description. Thanks everyone for watching. Speak to you in a bit.